over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Danny Vorgs' updated NFL power ratings for Week 2 have been posted over there, including his picks for sides and totals. 58% over the last 2 years over at BangTheBook.com. About a 500 start last week. I believe he went 10-9 with his picks, but he's looking forward to Week 2 here with some good overreactions out there in the betting market. My college football power ratings are posted earlier on in the week. I'll post college football and NFL market odds reports tomorrow. We've got previews up for the NASCAR weekend. Great golf preview from James Mazzola. We've got a UFC preview coming this weekend as well. Lots of stuff going on. WNBA playoffs. So much stuff going on over at BangTheBook.com. Lots of additional college football and NFL content coming your way the rest of the week. So make sure you keep it tuned to the website. Also, lots of free pick videos on our Bang the Book YouTube page, 4 from myself, 3 from Brian Blessing. So you can check those out over there as well. As you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook. 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. One guest joins me here on the program today. That is professional handicapper Brad Powers from BradPowersSports.com. Brad, how's it going today, man?
Man, it's going well. How you doing on this fine Thursday?
Doing well, buddy. Appreciate your time as always, man. And once again, thank you so much for covering for me here for the full hour. Sending our best wishes, of course, still to Thor Nystrom, unable to join us here again this week, and hoping for the best for him. In any event, here we're going from Week 2 to Week 3, Brad. You got to make some adjustments. You got to make some changes. Who are some of the teams that headline that list, whether you moved them up or down?
I think the biggest power ratings adjustment that I've had, up or down so far this season is the Maryland Terrapins. I mean, obviously 2 very good performances to start off the season. I didn't upgrade them too much after the Howard win. And, it's an FCS school, but, what I do is as we get more data points, I regrade games. Maybe I only upgraded a team a point or downgraded them a point and a half or whatever, but as we move along the season, sometimes I regrade games that I've already graded earlier in the season as we get more data points. So I bumped them up a little bit more for the Week 1, and then obviously after last week's shellacking of Syracuse, the most lopsided victory by an unranked team over a ranked team in 20 years. Yeah, I got the Terps up like 8 points, and it's still a little bit short of what the market has. It looks like the market's upgraded them 10 points compared to where they were at the start of the season. But they've been my biggest upgrade. And then I think the other storyline is probably second-year coaches really falling short of expectations. And I'm talking the UCLAs of the world, Tennessee, Florida State, Nebraska, all those teams I moved down at least 5 points.
All right, so as you go through here, we will talk about a lot of those teams that you just mentioned, so we'll see if the market's in line with you and what your thoughts are on some of these games. But I do want to start on Friday night here and throw an audible from the list of games I sent you early this morning here. I do want to touch on this North Carolina State-Wake Forest game. Wake Forest, a 3-point favorite. Total now 66.5. Did peak at 68, has come back down a little bit. But North Carolina is a team that's been moving up for a lot of people as well. So where do you have this number?
Yeah, I actually think it should be closer to pick. I bumped up North Carolina only 3 points. I've actually been a little conservative. I thought they dominated the final more than what it would indicate against South Carolina, even though they had to rally from an 11-point deficit. You dive in the box score, they actually probably should have won that game by more. But then last week, fortunate to win. Let's be honest. Under 3 minutes left in the game, they're facing a 4th and 17. They convert it and end up going on to score a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to beat Miami, but they were outgained in that one. So only a 3-point upgrade, but even with that, I think the line should be closer to pick. Now the question is, emotionally, where are they at? North Carolina's just pulled back-to-back emotional outright upsets. Now you're going on the road, first true road game of the season. Where are they at emotionally? If they got their head on straight, and they should. Mac Brown's obviously exceeded expectations so far. I'm going to lean with North Carolina here.
Yeah, my number is 1 on this game as well. And, I'm not exactly sure what I want to do with this one because not crossing any key numbers or anything like that. I don't know how much I want to believe in North Carolina yet, because we also come to find out Jake Bentley playing that fourth quarter with a broken foot for South Carolina. So if he's healthy, that game probably does go differently. And also, he overthrew a guy down the seam for what probably would have been a game-winning touchdown in that one. So South Carolina maybe would have been able to escape anyway. For Wake Forest, I mean, look, the thriller against Utah State where they gave up almost 600 yards of offense, found a way to win that game, cover the number for most people against Rice in week 2. I don't know quite what Wake Forest is yet, especially on the defensive side. So I think this is a tough Friday night handicap. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with that. And even though I got a relatively large disparity in a power rating, I'm not going to get too involved. I haven't done much with Wake Forest's power rating, nor I think anyone else has. Maybe even a slight downgrade, because I thought they probably should have ended up losing that game against Utah State earlier this season. I mean, the market's all over the over here. I mean, both teams are going to run some tempo. North Carolina's running more tempo. Wake Forest is one of the more fast-paced teams in the country. But, man, that's a high number considering, I mean, it's quote-unquote a non-conference game. But obviously it's a very important game in the state of North Carolina. So I don't expect to have a ticket on this one.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. These two teams are playing a non-conference game despite being in the same conference.
Yep.
I forgot about that point. That's it's because they wanted to sort of rekindle this rivalry, and I give them credit for that. I don't know why the ACC doesn't help them out a little bit more with it. But in any event, we move on from that game here. Game 115-116, Maryland and Temple. Maryland, a touchdown favorite here in this game. This line did get as high as 8.5, came back down now. This one looks like kind of your quintessential Sharp versus Public game, unless that was a little bit of a setup on Maryland earlier in the week. I don't know. It was a strange line move to me.
Yeah, I mean, I got it closer to 4, and I just got done saying I've upgraded. I moved Maryland's power rating more than any other, and maybe I'm too conservative here. Again, even though I got a pretty decent-sized disparity here, I don't expect to get too involved. Temple comes in off a bye. I'm not sure we know too much off of them blowing out an FCS opponent with a new head coach. But I'll say this, Mike Loxley's exceeded my expectations so far, because I thought his 3-year tenure in New Mexico earlier this decade was about as bad as any tenure that we've seen in college football in the last 15, 20 years. So he's, maybe being under Saban for a few years has helped him out, but I mean, they've been mighty impressive. They've got the quarterback situation figured out with Josh Jackson, the Virginia Tech transfer. Yeah, again, even though my number says Temple's clearly the play here, maybe I don't have, a great confidence that I haven't upgraded Maryland enough.
Yeah, my number in this game is 5.5. So both of us coming up a little bit short of the number. It makes me feel better about my number and where I currently have these two teams. And that's also with me, I think, being a little bit low on Temple coming into the season, because I'm not really a Rod Carey fan, especially when NIU played against some of those non-conference opponents. They didn't look very good. So not really a big Rod Carey guy.
Pathetic.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely awful in the bowl games, to be sure. I wonder where this number goes, because, again, like I mentioned, it went up to 8.5 and came back down. So somebody influential, somebody sharp in the marketplace has numbers on this game that look like ours. Yours is 4, mine's 5.5. Somebody believed Temple at more than a touchdown had some value to it. I wonder what happens going forward here.
That's a good question. I think Circa and Lindemann and the guys there opened it up around 4. So, I mean, that's why I didn't initially have a bet on it until, I expected it to run a little bit on Maryland just because they've been so impressive, but I stuck to my guns and just said, hey, my power rating's close. I'm not going to bet it. That's a great call. To see where this one goes. I think it depends. I see a 7.5 just popped up in New Jersey. Obviously, that's got closer proximity to Maryland, and that's something we're going to have to study as more and more states get legalized here. There's a lot of different numbers. I'm hearing stories about this New England-Miami game in the NFL with the huge disparate numbers in the marketplace in different areas of the country. I think 7's a good number, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised some of the Jersey books, maybe they do close a little higher.
That is interesting. And, I had a buddy of mine on Twitter reach out to me who lives in the Midwest, and he was telling me that one of the Iowa sports books had Iowa State minus 8.5 at Baylor for a look-ahead line. And he asked me, he's like, what's your number on the game? I said, well, my number's about pick 'em on that game with Iowa State at Baylor. And he's like, okay. So, obviously these regional markets are definitely a lot different. Yeah, it's only $500 limits on those look-ahead lines, so it wouldn't take much to bump that number down. But still, these regional markets are much, much different than the offshores and the Nevada markets. It is fascinating to watch.
Yeah, a lot more immature. I mean, well, the only way to get mature is to learn your lessons, and I think, it's fun to root for the hometown team, but when it starts costing you in the pocketbook a lot, we'll see. As the years pass by, if people start, smartening up a little bit, they have, to a certain extent, they have obviously here in Nevada, but we still get UNLV and Wolfpack and stuff money in this state. But there's a lot of irrational exuberance when it comes to the Iowas and the Nebraskas in the world, and reading some of those stories are quite amusing.
All right, so we move down here to something of a rivalry game, I guess. I mean, this is kind of an in-state big brother, little brother type situation. Game 125-126. Air Force from Colorado Springs makes the trip to Boulder to take on Colorado. I thought 3.5 was light. I still think 4.5 is light relative to the numbers that I have on this game. But this line is moving up on the Colorado side.
It is. I have 4. I mean, I'm disappointed. I think 15 years ago, I guess I'm always the guy that pines for the past because I don't know. I never felt like that. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, I am. So I'm not going to get too into it, but I always felt like I fit in better with my parents and my grandparents' generation. But this is talking market. I mean, let's be honest. 15, 20 years ago, this line's at least 6. With Colorado coming off of, a couple of wins and no one really knowing much about an Air Force team that saw back-to-back losing seasons. So I was disappointed the number came short. I got it 4, and that's not factoring in the situation. I've been relatively light on Colorado's power right now. I've upgraded the Buffs, certainly. But, let's be honest. They're 2-0, and they've been outgained in both games. So I think situationally, they're coming off a game, a storm the field game, one of their biggest comebacks in school history, one of their biggest wins they've had in recent memory. Air Force, playing Big Brother, haven't played them since 1974, coming off a bye. I already think Air Force is much improved. I think that, the stadium's going to be a little sleepy. It's an 11 a.m. local kick. I like Air Force. I bet Air Force. I'd have it like more top play of the week material if it wasn't for the fact Mel Tucker prepped for Georgia Tech's option while he was the DC at Georgia the last couple of years. That would be my only hang-up.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can certainly get that. I mean, look, my number, I will admit my number is way off. And the problem here is that I've probably given Colorado too much respect. I've moved them up 4 points since the beginning of the season, largely because, I think the offense hasn't taken a step back with Mel Tucker yet. The defense has had its issues, certainly, but I think the offense still looks pretty decent. If I don't make that 4-point adjustment, my number here is 5. So obviously, what I did wrong here is that I probably have overreacted to Colorado, or maybe I had Air Force too low coming into the season. That could very well be it too. So, again, it's all about that push and pull early on in the year of figuring out what's real and what's not. And also got to factor in the equation here that Colorado is going to have to be really efficient with its offensive possessions because the option just takes the air out of the football. It's something I talked about on yesterday's show with the Georgia Southern versus Minnesota game, why I lean Georgia Southern a little bit. You've got to cash in on your offensive chances because you don't get a lot of them. So will Colorado do that? I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, they were certainly efficient in the second half against Nebraska, much less so than the first half, or much more so than what they were in the first half. So, yeah, that's going to be critical. And, again, an early start time off a big win, are they completely buttoned up? If they are buttoned up, no penalties, and they're cashing in, then we got to start talking, hey, Mel Tucker might end up being a pretty good coach, or at least he's showing it the first couple of games of his career here. But I think it'd be totally excusable if they weren't, and that's why I think Air Force will take advantage of some of those. And, I think coming into this season, I was higher on Air Force in the marketplace, and I liked what I saw week one. Now, it was an FCS opponent, and they had a bye, so I don't have a lot of data, but we'll see. I did end up betting Air Force. I'm not totally shocked by the line move, but I will be shocked if it continues to climb. I'll be stunned if it closes, over 5. I think some money is going to be coming in on Air Force during the weekend.
One other thing I will mention here, I guess maybe to play devil's advocate, maybe to support my bad number on Colorado here, is that the Buffaloes have given up over 9 yards per pass attempt, and Air Force is not going to throw the football at all. So I guess we'll find out about that Colorado run defense here in this one, see how they're able to stack up against the option. Compelling game nonetheless. I don't think I'm going to trust my number and play Colorado because if I'm off that far, then I probably effed up. And that certainly seems like what the case is here in this game. How about this one? Game 133-134, Akron and Central Michigan. You will not hear many shows talk about this game, but this line has moved down 5 points in favor of the Akron Zips. What the hell's going on here with Central Michigan just a 1-point favorite?
Yeah, I don't like Quentin Dormady, the quarterback for Central Michigan. He's going to play. He's been questionable, but I think with that big of a line move, that's saying he's not going to play. So I think that's a majority of it. He's played pretty well. At least he did in week one. They got their teeth kicked down their throat last week against a very impressive Wisconsin team. But to me, that's just pure quarterback there. Because, let's face it, Akron hasn't done anything to wow you. They got killed by Illinois. And I get it, they only lost by 11 to UAB, and statistically it was close. But, that game was a 31-6 UAB lead in that one. UAB missed a couple field goals, and Akron scored a late couple of touchdowns. So I think it's a fair number at this point. Shame on me for, not getting to that box score quick enough and knowing that Dormady, the quarterback for Central Michigan, might not play.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I guess this news came out yesterday about 16 or so hours ago for when we're doing the recording here. Not just Quentin Dormady, but also running back Jonathan Ward out for this game. So essentially Central Michigan's entire offense is not going to play here in this one. Hence that big line move. I don't know if I could still trust Akron in that situation, but obviously you do have to make adjustments. Do have to move with the market here. But those 2 key injuries for Central Michigan, and this underscores what one of the problems is in terms of college football handicapping. Again, obviously Dormady, must have left hurt in Saturday's game. I didn't see this information at all until, pretty much just now, and it came out yesterday evening. It's hard sometimes to find that injury information in college football, and you really have to be vigilant and really have to dig for it.
Yeah, you do. And, another soapbox moment here. I'll make it quick, but we do have the full hour with me, so I'll sneak a couple of these in. That's why I got to ask myself if I'm going to be a really college football expert, and I'll always do your show, Adam, but I got to, ask myself, can I do as much media as I am? Because it's stuff like this that you miss when you're doing radio shows all the time that obviously can affect the end of season bankroll and whether or not you finished up or down for a season.
Well, and what's interesting here is that there was obviously some speculation early in the week. I think Akron moved early. I thought initially it was a right angle side that was moving them, and it very well could have been. But that number came down from 6 to 3. Now we've got additional reaction to the official announcement, and we're down to 1. So that's important too, is that, maybe Akron wins this game. Maybe the line winds up not mattering at all. But if Central Michigan wins this game, it could fall in the middle of where it opened and where it is now. And now you just have piggybackers kind of following along based on the news. If you can get in on this stuff early, that's fantastic.
Absolutely. Closing line value in the long run matters, although it hasn't mattered necessarily for my bet so far. I got one this week. We'll see how that happens. I'm ahead of it by like 10 points. But, I think certainly getting at these early, that's why, especially the small schools. Now, if you just focus on a couple conferences with the small schools, you're going to find 3, 4, 5 of these a year that you can get ahead of. And, again, if you're getting ahead of them more often than not, that's going to affect in a positive way your bankroll.
Probably don't have to spend too much time on this one, but I did want to talk about this game. As everybody knows, my wife from South Carolina, so I do follow the Gamecocks here. They're getting 25.5 at home against Alabama, game 137-138. Look, Ryan, Helinski looked pretty good there in that first game, but obviously against Charleston Southern, an FCS team. Any chance the Gamecocks keep this thing close and cover the number?
I lean with them. It is their largest home underdog role since 1999. I think that was Lou Holtz's first season. They went like 0-11. Muschamp's 10-3 against the number as a dog here recently, so he's in his preferred role. Although speaking of preferred roles, I did like kind of some data mining on Nick Saban because I got thinking after he didn't cover as a big favorite last week as a 40-plus point favorite, and he's traditionally just terrible in that role. Where is he as when he's covering spreads? Because he's been blindly betting on Alabama head coach Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide here the last 10, 12 years, even though you're paying a premium, even though they're very popular, even though I would say they're expensive. You're hitting over 55% against the number if you're just blindly betting on them. And it just so happens he does his best work when he's laying in the 20s, anywhere from 20 to 29.5. He's covered 75% of the time since 2008. 24 wins, 8 losses, and a couple of pushes. Lean South Carolina for me, but let's just talk out loud. A true freshman quarterback, second game, only played an FCS team taking on Nick Saban in Alabama. That usually doesn't end well, but I do think it's being priced in the marketplace. Number's just too high in my opinion. Lean South Carolina.
All right, so we moved down one spot here. This is one of my biggest overlays of the week, so I really want to get your thoughts on this game in case I can support myself into a play for the Nugget. Game 139-140, East Carolina and Navy. Navy pretty much 7.5 market wide here. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I really wanted to bet Navy a lot in this game. And I gave out, I have a Sunday night report, and I gave out Navy as one of my picks. I just liked it a lot. I thought that situationally, Navy's off a bye. They got a bye on deck. They can really zero in on this game. But then I started, and then generally speaking, I know Mike Houston. He's the East Carolina head coach. He comes from James Madison. So I knew a little bit about his background, and I started going through James Madison the last 3-4 years, and they haven't really faced any option teams. So I'm like, you know what, that's good enough for me. Let's go with Navy. But, as I'm looking a little bit further, and I haven't seen this from anybody, but that's why I read 9 newspapers a day, Mike Houston actually ran the option when he was a head coach at Lenore Rhine and also at the Citadel for about 5 years when he was a head coach at those 2 different schools. He ran the option offense. So that had me off of the Navy side a little bit there.
Okay. Interesting. See, my number here, and I did want to mirror the people that were high on East Carolina coming into the season. My number is actually 2.5, which I know is way off of the market. I know. We always get into this, and your numbers wind up being right, mine wind up being wrong. But I don't
know about that. Every time I bet you on them, you win, but whatever.
I've been so down on Navy in the AAC, and I fully understand East Carolina is not an upper echelon AAC team, but Navy being part of a conference now where teams see them more often, they can't keep up. They can't keep up defensively. They're nowhere near as good offensively as they used to be. I'm purposefully low on Navy. I was last year. I am this year. Clearly, I really am here in this game. Again, this is one of those, though, where East Carolina has to maximize their possessions because they probably won't get a whole lot of them. So that's the question here is, can East Carolina be efficient enough? I may wind up on the Pirates here, and I love the note you just mentioned about, Mike Houston used to run the option. He should know how to prep for it, you would think.
Yeah, and you bring up they should maximize their possessions. Well, the one reason their former coach, Scotty Montgomery's not there anymore is they really never did maximize their possessions. Last 3 years coming into 2019, East Carolina was a combined minus 40 in turnovers. So, we'll see if they got it cleaned up here. This will be a big game. If they have that cleaned up and they've made that step under a new head coach, this would be the right game to do so.
I think the problem here is off of a 2-5 start in the Nugget where I went 0-4 on my college picks. It's probably too risky to take, but I think from a personal bankroll standpoint, I'll have some investment here in East Carolina, especially getting that 7.5. How about this game? 143-144, USC, BYU. Weird spot for Southern Cal. Interesting spot for BYU. USC a 4.5-point favorite here.
Yeah, I'm on BYU. Not big, but I'm certainly, leaning that way. And, it's a really intriguing handicap. I mean, obviously USC exceeded expectations last week with the true freshman. I mean, that run out to close that game, what was it, like 35-0 to close the game against Stanford? I mean, that's mighty, mighty impressive. And he certainly looked the part, but now it's his first road start. It's in altitude. It's a unique spot for a USC team that just, to me, hasn't shown the maturity to go in and win this game. Speaking of maturity, I mean, kudos for BYU. They hung in there, got the big pass play to tie the game last week against Tennessee. I had a Tennessee -3 ticket. I was just praying to get my money back, but that obviously couldn't happen. So story of the first 2 weeks of the football season. Helton's not good as a favorite. We'll see. I mean, to me, if Helton's going to make it, and now that there's going to be a new athletic director for SC, I mean, they got to take care of business here. I'm not so confident they do so, and I lean with the Cougars here.
No, I didn't play any openers on Sunday. I didn't have my power ratings ready. I was tailgating the Browns game, so I wasn't able to get all my stuff together.
Man.
I've played one game this week, and it's UCF. And this is one of the questions that we have here early on in the season is, was one team good or is the other team just not very good? I think Stanford may just not be very good. So I think, is there a chance that people are just overreacting to what USC did?
It's a good point. I mean, I'll give you inside information. One of my best buddies in town, he actually spoke to the Stanford play-by-play guy. And, I mean, unfortunately, he did say this off the air. He didn't go on his radio show and say it, but off the air, the Stanford guy said, I think this is by far a worse team that we've had in a decade. And he said that in the summer. So your instincts might be correct there, and especially a Stanford team that lost their left tackle and didn't have their quarterback last week. So maybe there is an overreaction to how good SC is. And if that's the case, and my numbers, I upgraded. I got USC down a point. I don't know if I have a good grasp on them. I mean, clearly I downgraded them without JT Daniels, and they disappointed me against Fresno in week 1. I tried to get pretty aggressive with their upgrade last week, like a three-point or so. Again, this is a game where I mean, if SC goes out and blows BYU, then I'll be much more aggressive with the power ratings adjustment. But I have my doubts, just not only with the true freshman quarterback or the competition they face, but also my doubts that, I'm not a huge Clay Helton guy. So, again, if SC is going to be a team that exceeds expectations this year, this is a prime example of a game they should take care of business. I don't think they will.
And these are the hardest teams to power rate. I mean, give me NC State with Dave Doran. Give me Wake Forest with Dave Clawson. Give me schools that don't get elite talent, but the coaches maximize it every day, twice on Sundays, over teams like USC, where it's all talent and the coaching is just abysmal.
It's a great point. There's a lot of high variance with those teams. So you can have some of your easiest winners, and then you can have some of your worst losers on that one, where the teams that there isn't as much variance, and you brought up 2 examples. You do, for more often than not, you're getting on a week-in and week-out basis.
All right, so we move to game 153, 154 here. Iowa and Iowa State. Iowa 2.5-point favorite, straight 3 at plus money at Bovada. So Iowa looks like a little bit of a public side here to go along with an early sharp side in this rivalry game against Iowa State. What are you thinking about this one?
Well, I just tweeted this trend. It's a little surprising, but Iowa is a road favorite. This is remarkable. This goes back to the end of 2011. 18-0 straight up, road favorite, Iowa. 16-1-1 against the spread, average covers by 12 points per game. That's not too shabby here, but I don't think people, this is where I think sometimes being a college football fan helps. I don't think people realize how big of a deal getting college game day on your campus for the first time is. I go back to last year, Washington State got it, the game day show, first time ever for them. And they boat raced Oregon, at least early in the game. There was a lot of emotion in that stadium. I expect that to be the case here. I've been relatively high on Iowa in the marketplace, higher certainly with my numbers. Each of the first 2 games have said that Iowa. I've been 3 points higher. But my number here, and has got this game closer to pick. So I'm on Iowa State here.
Yeah, I have this pick on a neutral, give Iowa State the home field advantage. I do have them favored in this spot. And, look, they're coming off a bye, and everyone thinks about that Northern Iowa game. Yeah, it went to triple overtime. Shit happens. They outgained Northern Iowa by 200 yards in that game. They had everything that could go wrong. A defensive score against. They had some punts at midfield. They just had a bunch of things that didn't really go in their favor. That is the one problem I have here with backing Iowa State. I haven't done it yet, waiting to see if I can get a 3 at reasonable juice to do so. But the reason why Iowa has those good numbers as a road favorite is because if you don't play mistake-free football, you don't beat Iowa because they never beat themselves. Kirk Ferentz is so good at that. I mean, it's safe. It's vanilla. Some people call it boring. You know what? It also wins football games. So I'm probably going to wind up on Iowa State here in some context, but I don't know if I'm all that excited about it.
Yeah, several good points. I mean, if you don't want to get fired, you want to have a long career. I would go with the coaching styles of Mark D'Antonio, Kirk Ferentz. I mean, that stuff works particularly in their regions of the country. So I'm not a huge fan of Ferentz, but, I mean, let's say he's been there 20 years now, and I think he's gotten about as much out of that program as you can. I'll say this. You bring up the Northern Iowa game. I see this oftentimes year after year in the marketplace. People overreact to those scores against FCS schools. I mean, they just do. Whether they lose, the FBS team loses the game outright, or it's a really close final. Here's the reality, and I'm going off Jeff Sagarin's numbers. Northern Iowa right now is a top 10 FCS team, and Northern Iowa right now is power rated higher than 33 FBS teams in Jeff Sagarin's ratings. So everyone overreacts to those finals. Reality is, I mean, it was like, comparatively speaking, now I'm going off my power rankings now, it was like Iowa State playing in North Texas or a Middle Tennessee and a couple of solid teams out of Conference USA.
Well, and I guess here's the question. I mean, is Northern Iowa high? Northern Iowa is almost on par with Miami of Ohio and higher than Rutgers in Sagarin's ratings. Those are the two teams Iowa's played so far. So Iowa's basically played two teams equal to Northern Iowa. And there's a big overreaction in the market to this number. So maybe I do feel a little bit better here than about probably winding up on Iowa State this week. We'll move down one game. I got a listener request for this one. Looks like kind of a dumpster fire, but these are the games we talk about on this show that nobody else will talk about. Game 155, 156, Colorado State and Arkansas. And I'll throw you a little bit of inside information here that I got. Texting with a buddy of mine who's an FCS coach last night, said that they were watching some film on Ole Miss, and they were watching the Arkansas side of things too, just to scout the Ole Miss defense. He said Arkansas has no semblance of an offensive scheme at all whatsoever. So I liked Arkansas up until that point, but this is a ugly kind of game.
Yeah, I have not liked Arkansas whatsoever, and I think, Chad Morris should have his Christmas cards, at least right now. He should be sending them to Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee and Willie Taggart at Florida State and Chip Kelly at UCLA because, I mean, his horrific start for a year plus here kind of gotten overlooked nationally speaking. I'm sure the natives in Arkansas are not happy. And, I mean, the Portland State game, I happened just to watch maybe a quarter and a half of that one. I agree. I didn't see much there. It's not like Portland State's North Dakota State. I mean, Portland State's not that great as an FCS school. And even in last week's game, lose by 14 at Ole Miss. Arkansas's 2 touchdowns, 68-yard fumble return touchdown, and a 6-yard touchdown pass with about 80 seconds left after a garbage time, like 7-play, 81-yard drive. So they didn't do anything offensively against Ole Miss last week. I thought revenge would be a factor here. Colorado State making a unique trip to the heat and humidity of the South. But, I'm off the game. I don't want any part of it.
I've got a power ratings overlay here, and I think it's because I just haven't been aggressive enough moving Arkansas down because I didn't have that frame of reference. I haven't watched any of their games. I haven't seen what they've actually done. You struggle against Portland State in week 1, and I kind of say, well, you got a conference game on deck. Maybe that's why. You don't want to show anything. You wind up being complacent, and it costs you. I obviously need to move Arkansas down, and that's something that I will definitely do heading on into week 4 here. All right, so in the interest of time, I'm going to skip past one of the games I wanted to talk about. We'll do it as part of a quick Pick 6 segment instead. I did have a listener request for this game, though. 163-164, Louisiana Tech and Bowling Green. La Tech, this line's starting to move now as high as 11.5 out there.
Yeah, I mean, I bet Louisiana Tech. Lindemann and the circuit guys opened them up. I mean, it was low. I think, was it 6.5, 7? I think I even took 7.5. I just expected on the line to blow through 10. I got it closer to 10.5 is my pure number on it. Bowling Green's been terrible at home. I should know. I went there. That's my alma mater. 3-16 against the spread. Their last 19 home games. Who in the hell is 3-16 against the spread at home? Their last 19. I mean, they look good, the Falcons, in the first game. Then they same old Bowling Green the last 3-4 years. Last week, they were just, got crushed by Kansas State, squashed like a grape. I'm a little worried with Louisiana Tech. I was a little high on them week 1. They just didn't get it done. They had some scoring opportunities and didn't. But last week, they really struggled with Grambling. And Grambling, messed up on like 4 scoring opportunities and still only lost the game by 6. So that has me concerned here. I agree with the line move here, but at the current number, I don't have a play here.
Yeah, that's fair. And you talk about alma maters. I mean, you went to Bowling Green. At least you guys have a good hockey team. I went to Akron. We've got a great soccer team. But, the revenue sports, at least on the football side, not very good. Basketball's kind of up and down a little bit. But you and I, we can lament our alma mater's athletic achievements here, to be sure. All right, let's move down the board a little bit more. And, again, another game I'm going to skip over. We'll use for a Pick 6 segment quickly. Game 175-176, Florida and Kentucky. Florida an 8-point favorite here. This number has kind of bounced around between 7 and 10. Terry Wilson out for the year for Kentucky, which doesn't really seem to have impacted the line too much.
Yeah, it hasn't. I mean, I want to talk myself into Florida, but, they're without their key playmaking wide receiver, that Tony. They're missing a key cornerback for them, and I just don't trust Felipe Franks after watching the Miami game. A guy that should be buttoned up wasn't in that game, and I didn't watch their game against UT Martin, obviously, last week, but I'll be watching this one. What I ended up giving out was the under, 50.5. It moved about a point and a half yesterday. Not saying I moved it or not, but, sometimes I have influence every now and then. But, looking at Kentucky with a backup, Sawyer Smith's not terrible. I think he's going to be a better passer than Wilson, but I think I'd rather have Terry Wilson against this Florida defense that really gets after the quarterback. I'd much rather have a mobile guy back there in the pocket than a statue like Sawyer Smith. So I think that's a negative for Kentucky's offense. And, again, Florida doesn't have a lot of elite playmakers. Their best guy is out for an extended period of time. Early season, important conference game. I like the under here.
And this is an interesting one, too, because it was, 30 straight meetings that Florida beat Kentucky, and then last year the Wildcats
31.
actually broke through 31. And then last year the Wildcats break through in Gainesville, no less. So, obviously Kentucky's going to be up for this game, and I don't know how much those revenge factors really do matter. But, for Florida here, it was a pretty embarrassing performance last year, something for Dan Mullen to certainly drive home this week.
Absolutely, but Kentucky probably should have ended it a couple of times prior in recent memory. They blew a game again at Florida like 5-6 years ago, and then 2 years ago, last time they played here, they blew a lead where they didn't even cover a wide receiver late in the game against Florida, and it was an easy touchdown pass. So I do expect Kentucky to be max motivated here. I just don't know if they have enough. They lost some generational talents on both sides of the ball, and Benny Snell, their all-time leading rusher, and Josh Allen, a top 5 pick. So, they've been all right against 2 decent MAC teams in Toledo and Eastern Michigan. I've actually been impressed with Kentucky, but now with a new quarterback, I still lean Florida, but again, I like and I bet the under.
All right, so as we're taking a look here at the market, and of course, sometimes things do happen as we're recording the show. Sometimes things break shortly after the show here. Game 185-186, TCU and Purdue. It seems, based on the action we've seen here so far, and it certainly does look like there's a chance that this line may keep going, Elijah Sindelar probably not going to play for Purdue, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's concussions, and rightfully so in today's day and age. I mean, we're cautionary with that. So I don't think he's going to play. Important game for Purdue. I hate to when anybody's health is in question, but I bet Purdue season win total under. So, I mean, this is one of those swing games, especially after they've already lost a game they should have won against Nevada, that I think clearly TCU is going to be the side here. Sindelar doesn't play. Not a lot of experience behind Sindelar. I mean, the last couple of years, Purdue's actually had two quarterbacks, with Sindelar being the backup. They don't have that benefit of the doubt this year. I don't know what to make of TCU. I mean, I was not impressed with their game against Arkansas Pine Bluff, and they were off a bye. But I got to think with 2 weeks to prep, he'll have Gary Patterson a game plan for Rondell Moore, the All-American wide receiver for Purdue. And TCU would be the only way to go here. And I don't think the line's done moving at this point.
No, I don't think so. This is probably one of those situations like the Akron and Central Michigan game where you get that line move based on speculation, and then you get people that follow at a worse number once you get confirmation. And that's probably going to be what ends up being the case here. And, what does the backup situation look like for Purdue? I mean, it's not great because Sindelar started, in 2017. Blau beat him out for the job last year. Sindelar essentially redshirted last year. And then now back as the starter. They can't have any experience behind him, do they?
They don't have any experience, but I'll say this. I was watching the guys in the spring game because Sindelar didn't play. He was recovering from injury, so these guys did get some snaps in spring. And a couple of the guys, I mean, I wasn't impressed with their overall statures. I mean, it's not like Peyton Manning's back there throwing it around, but I thought that they were, I mean, in true Jeff Brom style, they were winning it in the spring game. They're throwing it all over the field, out patterns, so I actually came impressed, and that's why, everyone asked me in April, why are you watching spring games? It's examples like this, so it'll be interesting to see how far the market goes. I mean, I might end up talking myself into Purdue when it's all said and done if it continues to move significantly.
All right, so let's do the Pick Six segment here. Then I'm going to do a little bit of a surprise and kick an extra point with the Pick Six because of a listener email that I had in the past that I want to revisit here for a second. Let's go ahead and start 6 games, rapid-fire fashion. 161, 162, North Texas and Cal. Cal, a 14-point favorite off that big Washington win.
Yeah, I wanted to be on North Texas, but the number came short again. 15, 20 years ago, this number's probably 17. It's not. I lean maybe North Texas, although I'll say this, California defensive secondary will be able to guard the North Texas spread offense. So I know a lot of people are going to want to play North Texas, fading Cal off that big win, but the line seems a little short to me, and I think matchup-wise, California matches up. I don't have a strong opinion here.
I wanted to like North Texas a little bit here, and my power rating suggests that I should, but without Graham Harrell and with how they played last week against SMU, and SMU may just be really, really good, that's a bad look for North Texas, getting blown out there. I don't know how they score in this game. That's the big worry that I would have. I think I didn't downgrade them enough with Graham Harrell gone. And, obviously an adjustment I'll have to make here going into week 4. How about this one? 167, 168, Southern Miss and Troy. Troy a 2.5-point favorite, most of the 2.5s with some extra juice here, but you could have gotten a 3 earlier on in the week. This is a pretty good little game.
Yeah, I took the 3, although now I'm a little concerned about Southern Miss's, running back situation, and they're without their top 2 guys. So that's a concern for me. I don't even think the market knows. I don't even know if Troy's head coaches know how good they are this year. They only played Campbell, and they had a bye last week. I got a little bit better idea than Southern Miss. They were closer than the final against Mississippi State last week. They were -3 in turnovers. I think it's an important game for Southern Miss. They got Alabama on deck, so they need a win here. I bet Southern Miss plus the 3, but again, I got to check more injury concerns. I am concerned about their backfield at this point.
I actually have Troy -3.5. What's your number here?
Oh, wow. I got close to pick them.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm very high on Troy year in and year out. I love the talent that they have there, and again, they don't have Neil Brown, so this will be the first chance we really get to see, if there's any sort of coaching drop off there for the Trojans. How about this one? 181, 182, Middle Tennessee State welcoming a Power 5 team to Murfreesboro. It's the Duke Blue Devils who are a 6.5-point favorite.
Yeah, I think sometimes the market gets cute, and I get it. I think the square play is going to be Duke. The sharp play is going to be Middle Tennessee. But the market loves Middle Tennessee, and it has for years. I remember all these Vanderbilt games, the Vanderbilt be laying less than a touchdown, and then Vanderbilt go out and beat Middle Tennessee by 4 touchdowns. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case here, but, Duke looked all right in the first half against Alabama. They beat a decent FCS team last week up pretty good. Quentin Harris is a legitimate quarterback replacing the first-round draft pick Daniel Jones, and I think Duke on the defensive line is a lot better than what they've been in the past. I thought Middle Tennessee had a misleading game against Tennessee State last week, so I'll be square here. I'll be Huey Lewis. It's hip to be square. I'm going to take the Blue Devils.
I actually like this one. It goes against my numbers a little bit. I got this number closer to 5.5, but I agree with what you're saying. And also for Middle Tennessee State, again, big offensive changes. They don't have Brent Stockstill anymore. And the week 1 game against Michigan, maybe Michigan just doesn't have it all figured out yet. They've had back-to-back really sloppy games. I don't know if that week 1 performance and cover says as much about Middle Tennessee as people want it to. So I agree with you. I definitely think I'm going to go against my numbers here and take Duke under a touchdown in that one. 189-190. Florida State and Virginia. Brad, I have to ask. You've watched college football for a long time. Could you have ever imagined Virginia being more than a touchdown favorite against Florida State?
They've never been favored over Florida State. They've played 19 times since 1980. They've never been favored over Florida State. Now they're laying more than a touchdown. And guess what? I laid it with Virginia. This is one where I think the pros are going to say, oh, you can't do it, historically speaking. This is an outlier. Got to take Florida State. I just think it's two programs heading in opposite directions. And I think it's a coaching mismatch in this one. I think Virginia's, obviously they're not as talented as Florida State, but I think their players play with a sense of purpose. I like the quarterback, Bryce Perkins. Bronco Mendenhall's got, things. I think this is the best Virginia team in 15, 20 years. Florida State, I just don't see it. The first halves, obviously they've looked apart, but when they get punched in the mouth, it's the Chicken Little, sky is falling, woe is me. One little thing happens, and it turns into 5 or 6 bad things for them. I think a lot of bad things are going to happen to them on Saturday night, and I hope so because I bet Virginia quite big.
All right, so game 193-194 here, Northern Illinois and Nebraska. Nebraska 14-point favorite after whatever you want to call that last week in the fourth quarter. Do they rebound here this week and beat a team that they probably should?
Probably, but, I don't want no part of them. One of my biggest bets last week was on Nebraska, and that ruined my day, to be perfectly frank. And I'm starting to get tired of lip service on Scott Frost. He had a lot of it last year, and I chalked it up first year, and they certainly were much improved at the end of last season than what they were at the start. But now I've heard a lot of lip service from them already this year, and that was just an inexcusable loss of 17 when half the crowd. You have half the crowd. You go from Colorado can't get a first down to Colorado's getting 30 yards of play in the fourth quarter. I don't know. I think the jury's still out now at Scott Frost. I thought that the trend lines were way up for him, and I don't think there's been, outside of the UCLAs, the Tennessees of the world, and the Florida States of the world, there hasn't been a more disappointing team so far this season.
Yeah, I had Nebraska minus 3.5. We had them in the Golden Nugget too. That one was brutal to say the least. And not only Scott Frost, but I thought Eric Chenander would be a better defensive coordinator than he's been. His game planning is good,
ugly.
but their adjustments are a mess. They're okay in the first half, but that's back-to-back second halves where they have not played well. Last year in the second half, they didn't play overly well. It's a bad look there in Lincoln. I don't know what they do here this week. And like you said, to me, it's Northern Illinois or nothing. And I'm not going to play the game, but it's sad that you're in that position here with this Nebraska team. Finally, one more game on the FBS side, which I'll tease a little bit for the extra point. Texas Tech, 2-point favorite against Arizona. This is an interesting game here, too, with Kevin Sumlin not really moving this Arizona team forward. Yeah,
my line has Tech 1. I bet an early number at circa 71.5. I went over. and that's way up. So other than that, I don't expect to have much more tickets. I'll say this. I mean, be careful overreacting to the Northern Arizona line last week for Arizona. They did lead that game 51-13 at halftime. So they got a little careless in the second half. And maybe, after their first game, maybe Hawaii's pretty good after Hawaii beats Oregon State. But I trust Texas Tech a little bit more. I mean, even though my number's only 1, I mean, if you gave me $20 and said you definitely got to bet a winner here, who are you going to take? I just trust Matt Wells and Texas Tech. I think they're a little bit more buttoned up at this point.
Which is sad, right? I mean, the guys had the team for a few months, and Arizona, we all expected Arizona to be better with another year of Kevin Sumlin.
Another second-year head coach falling short of expectations. I mean, that's in my opinion, that's one of the major storylines this season so far. These second-year Power 5 coaches are not getting it done.
Well, and the big question is, I mean, will they get it done? I mean, is this just, some early season variance or something like that? Or are these guys just not getting through to their programs? Is it, too many transfers leaving? Is it, I don't know. But this is a tough spot here. And I agree with you. I mean, you'd have to trust Texas Tech to move the ball against that Arizona defense to be sure. Good grab on the over for you there, by the way. All right, I do want to ask you about one game in the FCS versus FBS ranks because had a listener asking about doing some more FCS stuff on the show. It's very, very hard with the time that we have to do this. I'd love to work it in as much as I possibly can. This one stands out to me here, though. Game 225-226, only posted offshore at 5 dimes, probably the only place that has a number up for this game right now. Weber State is a 9-point underdog at Nevada. Nevada getting just absolutely run out of Eugene last week by the Ducks off that big win over Purdue. Weber State held down a San Diego State team that went and played well against UCLA. So any thoughts on this one here with, only 1 out and very low limits?
Yeah, I faded Weber in that game against San Diego State. And story of my season so far, I laid 7. I think the line closed at like 11 and a half. And if you'd have told me before the game, hey, Weber's not going to score at all. You're laying a touchdown. You going to be good? Nope. No good. 6-0 San Diego State. After that, I don't really want to fade. Weber State has been really good defensively, and not just this year, but the last several years. Normally I'd love to buy a team after a 70-point loss, but I think the numbers quite. I mean, I think San Diego State's better than Nevada. So if I laid 7, do I really want to and lost? Do I really want to lay 9 with an inferior team? I don't. So for me, it's Weber or nothing.
All right, so we transition over to the NFL side of things here for a few minutes to wrap up the show. And first of all, I guess I'll ask you about this, and then we'll go into a couple of games quickly here. Week 1 to week 2, any adjustments, any reactions, any overreactions you see in the betting market?
Well, I mean, we'll see. I went ahead and went with Miami. So we'll see. I mean, with that historic line, with New England favored by nearly heading towards 20 now on the road, I think clearly if there is an overreaction week, it's certainly from week 1 to week 2 when you only got 1 data point. So I like to play on the teams, and I looked at a trend. I think it's like 59% the last 5-6 years. But if you're just blindly betting on 0-1 teams against 1-0 teams, I think you're relatively in decent shape there because the market overreacts.
All right, so a couple of games I want to talk about here specifically. Game 271-272 is first, Dallas and Washington. This one moved down a little bit with some early money on Washington. Now we're seeing a little bit of buyback here, anywhere from 4.5 to 6 in the market. Bovada has the 6. Not really a big surprise there, given that the Cowboys are involved. 5.5, the consensus number. This one's interesting because you can make an argument that people may have overreacted to what Dallas did, but also, how good did Dak Prescott look with that Kellen Moore offense? I mean, maybe this is just the new Cowboys.
Yeah, it could be. And what have I done? I mean, I've had good success in my life, but, I mean, geez, Kellen Moore's the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. I think I got him by 5 or 6 years. I thought I've had a decent, career so far, but my goodness, kudos to him for rising up in the ranks so quickly. Here's what you got to ask yourself. Because there's a lot of road chalk this week in the NFL. And to me, I think the public certainly, it's always, they want to gravitate towards that relatively small road favorite. But the question I always ask myself, if we, do the home away disparity, we flip it. And if we flip it in this case, give 3 points of home field advantage for both teams, which I think is relatively fair. Maybe it's a little less than that. But would you really want to lay 11.5 with Dallas if they were playing Washington at home? I wouldn't. I'd probably be on Washington if I was getting plus 11.5. At this point, Keenum actually looked the part, got the backdoor cover. They look good early. So because of that, I think I'm going to lean with Washington here, plus the 5.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and that's an important question to ask here. And also, too, something I talked about with Brian Leonard on yesterday's show, the fact that the sports books out in Vegas post look-ahead lines for the following week. We don't get that in college football.
Yeah.
We get that in the NFL, and there have been, as you mentioned, some substantial overreactions. New England was what, like 11 or 11.5 on the road at Miami before last weekend?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of my key handicapping things that I do each week is I look, it's an illiquid market. It's only one book. It's the Westgate. But, I mean, they are willing to take a couple of dimes on those bets. And I usually fade the biggest market moves because it's such a parity-driven league, the NFL. One of my staples of my handicapping is fading some of the biggest moves from the look ahead.
All right, one more game to tackle here with you, Brad. And once again, man, I really appreciate you taking the full hour with me here. Seattle and Pittsburgh. And this one's intriguing. 275, 276, the rotation number for this one. Pittsburgh up from 3.5 to 4. The Steelers looked awful in week one. Mike Tomlin showing that he's not an upper echelon NFL head coach at all whatsoever. Seattle, plenty of problems with Cincinnati. Cross-country travel. Does 4 seem light here? I mean, I'm not a believer in, it's a trap line. I don't believe that shit at all. But 4 does seem light, does it not?
Does. I took Pittsburgh as my top play, NFL. I mean, you look at teams, historically speaking, coming off 30-point losses. They're profitable long-term in the NFL. 30 years, 55%. That's the Steelers. They're off a 30-point loss. Steelers, when they're coming off an ATS loss of more than 18 points under Roethlisberger, 8-0 straight up and against the spread the next week. I thought Seattle, very misleading over the Bengals last week. When Andy Dalton's your NFL leading passer after week 1 and he didn't have A.J. Green, something is wrong with your pass defense. So looking at that, and you look at Seattle traditionally on the road, weeks 1 and 2, since 2007, 1-14 straight up, 1-13-1 against the spread. Since 2007,
what?
Seattle weeks 1 and 2 on the road. Yeah, Pittsburgh, my favorite pick.
Oh, wow. That's one hell of a trend. And I like Pittsburgh already in this game. I like them schematically. I just read a great piece over at The Athletic about how New England just carved Pittsburgh up with crossing routes. And Pittsburgh was playing man coverage, couldn't chase guys around. Brady picked them apart. Seattle doesn't run crossing routes. Seattle runs the football and lets Russell Wilson improvise, running around in the pocket and in the backfield. So I think that the lack of structure for Seattle in the passing game hurts them quite a bit in this spot here against Pittsburgh. But, damn, that trend that's something to say the least there about the Seahawks. Professional handicapper Brad Powers over at BradPowersSports.com. What's the story over there right now, man?
Yeah, I talk about it each week, and why the hell not? It's my newsletter. I mean, we're off to 3-0 start already in the NFL, 61%. That's not inflated by any stretch of the imagination. That's a lifetime record, giving out 3 NFL picks a week. Now 5 years doing it, 61% against the spread. Not too shabby. Obviously, we cover the NFL. You get a game right up each and every week. We also cover college football. God, it's been a so-so start for college football, 4 and 5 on the picks so far this season. But don't buy it for the picks, buy it for the info. Game write-outs on every single football game played that week. Power ratings, trends, you name it. It's all in there. $79. $79 is your price for the entire season all the way through the Super Bowl. It's called the Powers Picks newsletter. You go to BradPowersSports.com.
Then make sure you follow Brad on Twitter at Brad Powers and the number 7. Brad, appreciate your time, man, especially the full hour here today. Thank you so much, brother. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Take care, my friend.